I, 34M, never imagined I'd end up writing one of these posts. For years, I was the guy reading relationship stories and thinking, how do people not see the signs? How do they miss something this big? Now I know the answer. Because when you're living inside it, the lies don't arrive all at once. They arrive slowly. One excuse. One inconsistency. One broken promise. One strange feeling you convince yourself to ignore. Then one day you wake up and realize the life you've been defending no longer exists. My wife, 32F, and I had been together for almost 10 years and married for 7. We met through mutual friends at a birthday party. She was loud, confident, funny, and somehow managed to dominate every conversation without making people dislike her. At least, that was my first impression. She had this energy that pulled people toward her, including me. Back then I thought I'd gotten lucky. She seemed ambitious, driven, smart, beautiful. The kind of woman who walked into a room and immediately became the center of attention. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. Within 2 years, we were living together. Within 3 years, I proposed. Everyone said we were perfect together, including me. For a long time, I genuinely believed it. Looking back now, I can pinpoint the first red flag. The problem is that at the time it didn't look like a red flag. It looked like confidence. One night during our first year together, we were having dinner with friends when someone mentioned an argument they'd had with their boyfriend. The conversation turned into a discussion about relationships, trust, communication, honesty, normal stuff. One of our friends asked my wife what the secret to a successful relationship was. Without hesitation, she smiled and said, "Control the narrative before someone else does." Everyone laughed, including me. We assumed she was joking. She laughed too. But years later that sentence would replay in my head constantly. Because it turned out she wasn't joking nearly as much as we thought. The first few years were genuinely good. Or at least I think they were. That's the thing about discovering years of lies. You start questioning every memory, every happy moment, every vacation photo, every anniversary. You wonder which parts were real. You wonder if any of it was real. But before all that happened, life felt normal. We bought a house, adopted a dog, built routines, made plans, talked about children someday. The usual stuff. The first serious crack appeared around our 4th year together. It was small, ridiculously small. One Friday night, she told me she was meeting 2 coworkers for drinks. I didn't think anything of it. Around midnight, I sent her a text asking if she was having fun. No response. At 1 in the morning I called. No answer. At 2 in the morning, she finally came home. When I asked what happened, she rolled her eyes. "My phone died." Simple explanation. Reasonable explanation. Except the next morning, I noticed her phone battery was still at 60%. I remember pointing it out. She immediately got defensive. "Why are you checking my phone battery?" I felt guilty instantly, like I had done something wrong. So I apologized. Now here's the part that bothers me. Not because of what happened, because of how quickly I apologized. That would become a pattern. A very bad pattern. Months later, another strange thing happened. We attended a friend's wedding. Nothing unusual. Halfway through the reception, my wife disappeared for almost an hour. When she returned, I asked where she'd been. "Bathroom." "For an hour?" "Lots of women in line." Again. Reasonable. Technically possible. But something about her answer felt rehearsed. I ignored it. Because that's what I did back then. Ignored things. Explained things away. Protected the version of reality I wanted to believe. Then we got married. And for a while everything seemed fine. at least on the surface. But after the wedding, something slowly started changing. She became more irritable, more critical, more dismissive. If I forgot something, I was irresponsible. If she forgot something, I was unsupportive. If I got upset, I was overreacting. If she got upset, I needed to be more understanding. The rules always changed depending on who made the mistake. And somehow, the final result was always the same. I ended up apologizing. Then came the lies. Not huge lies. Not at first. Tiny lies. Pointless lies. The kind that make you wonder why someone bothered lying at all. She'd say she left work at 5. Then accidentally mentioned being at a store at 4:30. She claimed she never watched a certain movie. Then quote scenes from it later. She'd tell a story one way, then tell it differently a week later. Little things. Individually meaningless. Collectively exhausting. I started feeling like reality shifted whenever she wanted it to. Whenever facts became inconvenient, they simply changed. And if I pointed it out, I was remembering wrong. Every time. At first, I believed her. Then I started doubting myself. Then I started writing things down. Not because I thought she was cheating. Because I thought I was losing my mind. The notes helped. Unfortunately, they also revealed something disturbing. I wasn't imagining anything. The stories really were changing. Frequently. Then came the first major incident. About 3 years into our marriage, she started talking about a new coworker. A woman named Claire. At least once or twice a week Claire's name appeared in conversations. Lunch with Claire. Coffee with Claire. Meetings with Claire. Happy hour with Claire. Claire became the explanation for everything. If my wife came home late? Claire. Weekend event? Claire. Last minute schedule change? Claire. At the time I didn't think much about it. I knew coworkers became friends. Normal. Except one evening we attended a company event. A large one. Dozens of employees. Managers. Spouses. The whole thing. At one point, I casually asked someone where Claire was. The woman looked confused. Claire? Yeah. My wife's friend. She frowned. We don't have a Claire. I remember laughing awkwardly, thinking maybe she worked in another department. Maybe another branch. Maybe they just hadn't met. I told myself a dozen different explanations. Anything except the obvious one. Because the obvious explanation was uncomfortable. And I wasn't ready for uncomfortable truths. Not yet. A few weeks later, something happened that would stay with me for years. One night, I woke up around 3 in the morning. The bedroom was dark. Quiet. Except my wife wasn't in bed. At first, I assumed she was in the bathroom. Then I noticed light coming from downstairs. I walked down carefully. The house was silent. The only sound was a faint voice. My wife's voice. She was sitting in the backyard, talking on the phone. At 3 in the morning. The moment she saw me, she hung up. Immediately. No goodbye. No explanation. Nothing. Just hung up. I remember standing there. Half asleep. Confused. Who was that? She looked annoyed. Not embarrassed. Not nervous. Annoyed. No one. No one. Just a friend. What friend calls at 3 in the morning? She sighed dramatically. Exactly the way she'd do whenever she wanted me to feel unreasonable. Why are you making this a thing? And somehow, I ended up apologizing. Again. I wish I were making that up. I wish I could say that was the moment I realized something was wrong. It wasn't. Because I still loved her. Still trusted her. Still believed there had to be an explanation. The truth was much worse than I imagined. And over the next few months, that truth would begin revealing itself one piece at a time. Starting with a message she never intended me to see. The message that changed everything didn't come from anything dramatic. No screaming. No confrontation. No obvious discovery. It came from something stupidly normal. A notification. I still remember the exact moment, because nothing about it felt important at the time. My wife was in the shower. Her phone was on the kitchen counter face up. It buzzed once. Then again. Then the screen lit up. I wasn't trying to snoop. I wasn't suspicious in that moment. I was just standing there waiting for my coffee to finish brewing. But when the screen lit up, I glanced down. And that was it. One glance. That's all it took. The preview text said, "Last night was a mistake, but I can't stop thinking about it." My brain didn't process it immediately. It felt like reading a sentence in a language I almost understood, but couldn't fully translate. Then the name flashed. Not a full name. Just initials. R. I stared at it. Long enough that my coffee machine beeped twice before I even noticed. Then my wife's phone dimmed again. Like nothing had happened. And suddenly the kitchen felt different. Smaller. Heavier. I remember picking up the phone. Not opening it. Just holding it. Like it might explain itself. I didn't know the passcode. I had never needed to know it before. That realization hit harder than it should have. Because it meant there was already a part of her life I didn't have access to. A part one had never questioned until that moment. When she came out of the shower, she immediately noticed the phone in my hand. The reaction was instant. Too instant. "What are you doing?" Her voice wasn't calm. It wasn't confused. It was sharp. Protective. I put the phone back down slowly. "Your phone buzzed." She didn't relax. Not even slightly. Instead, she wrapped the towel tighter and walked straight to it. Like I might have damaged it just by touching it. "Don't go through my stuff." That was the first thing she said. Not, "What did it say?" Not, "Who texted me?" Just that. I remember feeling confused more than anything. I didn't go through anything. It lit up while I was standing here. She picked it up and checked it immediately. Quick. Efficient. Almost practiced. Then she relaxed. A little? Just enough for me to notice. And that should have been my second warning. Instead, I apologized. Again. I wasn't trying to. It's fine. She cut me off. But it wasn't fine. I could feel that now. Something had shifted. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I knew what was going on, but because I didn't. My brain kept looping the message. Last night was a mistake. What mistake? What last night? She had been home. As far as I knew. But suddenly, I wasn't sure what I knew anymore. At 2:13 a.m. I got out of bed. Went downstairs. Opened my laptop. I told myself I was just checking work emails. I wasn't. I opened her social media first. Nothing unusual. Then I checked tagged photos. Nothing. Then I checked mutual friends. Still nothing. It felt ridiculous. Like I was chasing a shadow. Then I made a decision I still can't fully explain. I checked her location history. We had shared it years ago. For safety. I never used it. She probably thought I forgot about it. At first, everything looked normal. Home. Work. Store. Gym. Normal routine. Then I saw it. A gap. 6 hours. No location data. No movement. Just nothing. On a Thursday night, she had told me she was working late. Her location history said she left work at 6:11 p.m. Then nothing. Until 12:34 a.m. when she was suddenly back near home. My stomach tightened. Because I knew her work schedule. There was no reason for a 6-hour gap. None. I closed the laptop immediately. Sat in the dark, trying to rationalize it. Maybe the phone died. Maybe GPS glitched. Maybe something technical. I remember repeating it in my head like a mantra. Technical issue. Technical issue. Technical issue. Because the alternative meant something else entirely. The next morning, I acted normal. I had to. That's what people do when their world is starting to tilt but hasn't fallen yet. They pretend it's still stable. She acted normal too. Too normal. Breakfast. Small talk. Plans for the weekend. At one point, she even laughed about something on TV. And I remember thinking, how can someone laugh like that after lying? But I didn't say anything. Instead, I watched and started noticing more. The phone always face down now. Always silent. Always nearby. Never left in another room. Then came the new habit. She started stepping outside to take calls. Every time. No exceptions. If the phone rang while I was in the room, she would leave immediately. Fast. Like it mattered that I didn't hear. One evening I followed her. Not dramatically. Just quietly. She went into the backyard. Closed the door behind her. And I stood inside, just out of sight. I couldn't hear everything. But I heard enough. Her tone was different. Not angry. Not casual. Soft. Familiar. And she laughed. A real laugh. Not the one she used with me lately. I remember gripping the counter without realizing it. Because I hadn't heard that sound in months. Not directed at me. The call lasted maybe 10 minutes. When she came back inside, she saw me standing there. Paused. Just for a second. Then smiled. "What are you doing?" "Just getting water." She nodded like nothing happened. Like I hadn't just heard a version of her I didn't recognize. That night, she fell asleep quickly. I didn't. I lay there thinking about everything I had ignored. Everything I had excused. Every time I had apologized when I shouldn't have. And for the first time, a new feeling started creeping in. Not anger yet. Not certainty. Something worse. Suspicion that was starting to harden into belief. And once that happens, there's no going back to ignorance. Only forward into truth. Even if you're not ready for it. And I wasn't. Not even close. The problem with suspicion is that it doesn't stay contained. Once it gets in, it spreads. Quietly at first. Then all at once. After that night, I started noticing everything. Not because things changed overnight, but because I finally started paying attention. And once you start paying attention, you realize how much you were never really seeing. The phone habits became impossible to ignore. She stopped leaving it anywhere visible when she showered. It went from always nearby to always with her. Even inside the bathroom. That alone made my stomach tighten because it was such a small change, but it screamed volume. Then came the lies that didn't even feel necessary. One Friday she told me she was grabbing drinks with coworkers. Nothing unusual. Except I noticed something I hadn't before. She didn't mention any names. No details. No casual. "Oh, Claire and Lisa are going." Just coworkers. Vague. Carefully vague. I remember asking, trying to sound casual, "Who's going?" She didn't even look up from her phone. "Oh, just some people from work." That was it. Short. Flat. Final. And something about it felt rehearsed. Like she'd practiced saying less. Not more. That night she left around 7:30 p.m. Dressed up more than usual. Not dramatically. Just noticeably. The kind of effort that didn't match. Just coworkers. I remember watching her leave. And feeling something uncomfortable settle in my chest. Not proof. Not certainty. Just imbalance. A feeling that something didn't fit anymore. At around 11 p.m., I tried texting her. No reply. At midnight, I called. It rang twice. Then stopped. Not declined. Just stopped. No callback. At 1:30 a.m. I checked again. Still nothing. At 2:10 a.m. I told myself I was overthinking. At 2:45 a.m. I started pacing the living room. At 3:12 a.m. I heard the front door. I froze. She walked in like nothing happened. No urgency. No apology. Just normal. Almost cheerful. "Hey," she said casually, kicking off her shoes. I remember staring at her, trying to match her energy. Failing. "Where were you?" She sighed like the question was mildly annoying. "Out." "Out where?" "Drinks." "Until 3 in the morning?" She finally looked at me, and I still remember the expression. Not guilt. Not panic. Annoyance. Like I was the unreasonable one for asking. "It ran late." That was it. No details. No explanation. Just dismissed. And I remember something shifting inside me in that moment. Not anger. Not yet. Something quieter. Something colder. Because I realized something important. She wasn't trying to convince me anymore. She was trying to condition me. To accept less information. To ask fewer questions. To doubt my own expectations. And it was working. A few days later, I did something I hadn't done before. I checked her phone bill. Not the phone itself. The records. Call logs. Patterns. And that's when I saw it. A number. Repeated. Consistent. Always late evening. Always when she was out or busy. No name attached. Just a number. But it appeared too often to be random. I wrote it down. Then stared at it for a long time. That night, I searched it. I told myself I was just curious. The result came back with nothing obvious. No name. No business. No clear identity. But it was active. Very active. And geographically local. Which meant whoever it was wasn't far away. That realization made my skin feel cold. Because suddenly, some guy wasn't an abstract idea anymore. He was real. Close. Present. Part of our life in a way I couldn't yet understand. The next breakthrough didn't come from technology. It came from something far more mundane. A grocery store run. She asked me to pick up a few things while she stayed home. Simple enough. When I got to the store, I ran into someone I vaguely recognized from her work circle. We exchanged polite small talk. And then, casually I asked, "How's the office been lately?" The person laughed. "Oh, you mean since the restructuring?" I nodded. Then, they added something that didn't sound important at first. "Yeah, it's been quieter without Claire around." I froze for half a second. "Claire?" "Yeah, she left months ago." Months ago. My wife had been talking about Claire that week. Not months ago. That week. I remember walking out of the store feeling disconnected from my own body. Because that meant one of two things. Either my wife had been lying about Claire, or she had been using Claire as a cover for something else. And neither option was good. That night I didn't bring it up. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I didn't. Because I still wasn't sure what I was dealing with. And I was afraid of being wrong. That fear kept me silent longer than it should have. But silence has a cost. And I was about to start paying it. Because 2 nights later, I saw the car. Not just any car. A silver SUV parked down the street. Engine off. Lights off. Just sitting there. At first I ignored it. Then I noticed it again the next night. Same spot. Same timing, same stillness. And then, on the third night, I saw her go out. She didn't say anything, just grabbed her keys and left. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. Not far, just enough to keep distance. She didn't go to a restaurant. She didn't go to a friend's place. She didn't go anywhere I recognized. She drove directly toward the same area where that SUV had been parked. And when she stopped, the SUV lights came on. That was the moment my stomach dropped, because I realized I wasn't dealing with theory anymore. I was watching it happen, in real time. And whatever I was about to discover next was going to change everything I thought I knew about my marriage. I didn't move right away. I just sat there in my car watching. Because once something becomes real, your brain doesn't immediately accept it. It lags behind reality for a while. My wife's car was stopped about 100 meters ahead. The silver SUV pulled slightly forward, then stopped beside her. No horn. No hesitation. Like this was planned. Like this wasn't the first time. I remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers went numb. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the SUV door opened. A man stepped out. I couldn't see his face clearly at first. Just his outline. Casual posture. Familiar movement. The way he approached her car didn't feel like a stranger meeting someone for the first time. It felt practiced. Like routine. Like habit. She got out too. No hesitation. No fear. No awkwardness. Just normal. That was the part that hit hardest. Because nothing about her body language said secret. Everything about it said familiar. They stood close to each other, talking. I couldn't hear anything, but I could see her gestures. The way she leaned slightly toward him. The way he nodded while she spoke. At one point she laughed. That same laugh I hadn't heard in weeks. Not inside my house. Not with me. Only here. With him. Something inside me cracked a little. Not loudly. Just enough to feel it shift. I told myself to stay calm. To gather evidence. To think logically. But logic has limits when you're watching your life collapse in real time. I started the car. Slowly. Carefully. Not rushing. Just moving closer. I parked further down the street where I could see better without being obvious. And that's when I finally got a clearer look at him. He wasn't someone I recognized. Not from work. Not from friends. Not from anything I could place. Mid-30s maybe. Dark jacket. Confident posture. The kind of confidence that doesn't ask for permission. He said something to her. She nodded. Then she touched his arm. Briefly. Naturally. Like it meant nothing. But it didn't mean nothing. Not to me. Because that kind of touch doesn't come from strangers. Or coworkers. Or just friends. It comes from familiarity built over time. Then something unexpected happened. She looked around. Slowly. Almost casually. But I knew what she was doing. Checking. And for a split second, her eyes passed over my direction. My breath stopped. I ducked slightly. Even though I wasn't sure she saw me. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. When I looked back up, she was already getting back into her car. The man stood there for a moment. Watched her leave. Then got back into the SUV. And drove off in the opposite direction. Like nothing had happened. Like it was just another night. But for me, nothing was going to be normal again after that. When I got home, she was already there. Sitting on the couch. Phone in hand. Casual. Relaxed. Like she hadn't just met someone in secret. "Hey," she said when I walked in. I stopped in the doorway. Looked at her. Trying to see something different. Anything. but she looked exactly like she always did when she was home. Controlled, composed, normal. "Where were you?" I asked. She didn't even hesitate. "Just driving around, clearing my head." That answer, that exact phrase, it hit something in me, because it was too convenient, too smooth, too prepared. I nodded slowly, then walked past her. Didn't say anything else, because I realized something important in that moment. If I confronted her now, I would lose control of the situation, and I wasn't ready to lose control. Not yet. That night I didn't sleep. Instead, I went back to my laptop. And this time, I stopped trying to find small explanations. I started looking for patterns. Phone records. Locations. Timing. Every time she said she was with coworkers. Every time she said she was working late. Every time she said she was out with friends. And slowly, a pattern started to emerge. Same nights. Same gaps. Same inconsistencies. Always overlapping with that same unknown number. Always overlapping with movement near that same area. And always followed by her returning home calm. Too calm. Like she had compartmentalized two completely separate lives. Then I found something I wasn't expecting. A saved contact on her backup account. No name. Just a single letter. E. Attached to a number. The same number I had seen repeatedly. My stomach dropped again. Because suddenly, the unknown man wasn't unknown anymore. He had an identity marker, however small. And that meant she wasn't hiding randomness. She was hiding structure. A system. A pattern of behavior that had been going on longer than I wanted to admit. I stared at that screen for a long time. Then closed the laptop. Sat in the dark. And realized something I didn't want to accept yet. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a one-time affair. It wasn't confusion or loneliness or bad judgment. This was organized, sustained, intentional. And I was only seeing the edges of it. The next morning, she kissed me before leaving for work. Normal. Warm. Automatic. And I remember thinking something I had never thought before in our entire relationship. How many versions of this woman exist? Because the one I saw at home, and the one I saw in that parking lot, did not feel like the same person anymore. And I was starting to wonder which one was real, and which one I had been living with all along. After that night in the parking lot, something inside me stopped functioning normally. Not in a dramatic way. Not like a breakdown. More like a system quietly shifting into a different mode. I stopped reacting emotionally in the moment. Instead, I started observing everything. Even her. Especially her. She didn't seem different at home. That was the strangest part. Same routines. Same small talk. Same casual touches. Same complaints about work. If anything, she became slightly more affectionate. More attentive. More present. And that alone made my skin crawl. Because it felt reactive. Like she had sensed a change in me and was compensating for it. But I hadn't said anything. Not yet. So why was she adjusting? One evening, I decided to test something. I asked casually, "Are you still meeting people from work a lot?" She didn't even look up from her phone. "Not really. Things have been quiet lately." That was it. Simple. Clean. Too clean. Because I already knew Claire was gone months ago. And yet, she had still been using the name recently as part of her explanations. Which meant she was either A. forgetting her own lies, or B. assuming I wasn't paying attention. Neither option was good. That night, I went back through everything again. Messages I had access to. Call logs. Location gaps. the SUV sightings, the e-contact, the late-night disappearances. And slowly, something started forming. A structure. Not chaos. Not random cheating. A schedule. Certain days always matched. Certain hours always matched. Certain excuses always matched. It was like watching a second life mapped onto our shared one. Parallel. Hidden just beneath the surface. And I realized something uncomfortable. She was better at managing it than I was at detecting it. That realization stung more than anything so far. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It was competence. Intentionality. Control. Then came the moment that changed the direction of everything. I got a notification while she was in the shower. Again. But this time I didn't just glance. I watched. The phone lit up on the counter. Same unknown number. Same pattern. But the message preview was different. It said, "Change of plans tonight. Same place as last time." My chest tightened instantly. Same place as last time. That meant repetition. That meant routine. That meant I wasn't watching something new. I was watching something ongoing. I didn't touch the phone this time. I didn't move. I just memorized everything I could see. Time. Sender. Preview. And then I did something I hadn't done before. I decided I wasn't going to wait for coincidence anymore. That night, I told her I was going to sleep early. She smiled. "Long day?" "Yeah." She nodded and kissed me on the cheek. Normal. Warm. Empty. At 10:40 p.m., she left the house. Same pattern. Same timing. Same energy. This time I didn't hesitate. I followed immediately. But I did something different. I didn't stay close. I didn't risk being seen. I kept distance and tracked her route instead. And like before, she drove straight to the same area. But this time, she didn't stop where she had before. She went deeper. Into a quieter section of the neighborhood. Less traffic. Less light. More isolation. And then she parked. Not on the street. Not randomly. In a small private lot behind a building. I parked far enough away that she wouldn't notice. Then I waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15. Then I saw headlights. The same silver SUV. Pulling in. Parking next to her. This time I didn't move. I didn't approach. I just watched from a distance. And then they both got out. Together. Like it was expected. Like it was scheduled. Like this wasn't an affair in the traditional sense. But something far more structured. They didn't rush. They didn't look around nervously. They walked side by side toward a side entrance of the building. Like they had done it before. Many times. And I sat there in my car realizing something that made my stomach drop even deeper than before. This wasn't discovery. This was confirmation. Everything I had been suspecting was already established reality for them. I was the only one still catching up. And I had been catching up far too slowly. I stayed there longer than I should have. Eventually I drove home. Sitting in silence. Thinking about what I had just seen. Not just the cheating. But the structure of it. The comfort. The routine. The ease. And the question that kept repeating in my head was no longer, "Is she cheating?" It had become something worse. How long has this already been my reality without me knowing? When she came home later that night, I was sitting in the dark living room. She froze slightly when she saw me. Just for a second. Then recovered. "Why are you still up?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't feel confusion. I didn't feel doubt. I didn't feel uncertainty. I felt distance. Like she was no longer emotionally attached to my reality. Just physically present in it. Couldn't sleep. I said. She nodded slowly, then walked past me. And that's when I understood something I wasn't ready to admit earlier. This wasn't going to fix itself. This wasn't going to resolve through conversation. And it wasn't going to stop because I hoped it would. Whatever this was, it was already too far gone. And the only thing left for me to figure out now was how deep it actually went.